Why are you doing that? To get a check? You can get a check doing something you love if you work hard enough. If you want to get anywhere in life, you're gonna have to build relationships. If you find the thing you enjoy most, pursue that.
I know you may not think of the NHL when you think of hip hop. I know you may not think of the NHL when you think of the culture. But my brother right here, Greg Wolf, the culture. I know the history. I want to bring that history to everybody who doesn't even understand how a dude goes from loving hip hop, being involved in the building of the hip hop scene here in Tampa to being one of the most sought after hosts in the National Hockey League.
Well, it's a pleasure, first of all, sir, to be sitting here with you right now in my house.
Right, your house.
It's my house. Welcome to my house. Shout out to Flo Rida. But yeah, man, I've always been in love with the culture. Allowed me to go from writing reviews for a hip hop magazine to getting myself on the radio here in Tampa as a street teamer, to working my way up to being on air,
right,
to the #1 night show in Tampa for almost 6 years, to then curating that here with the Tampa Bay Lightning, becoming a host for the team now, my 16th season with 2 Stanley Cup rings.
Look,
now,
man.
by the way, a small flex. It's a small flex.
Small flex.
I mean, a small flex. You got 2 Stanley Cup rings. I mean, again, you want to talk about hip hop has brought us this far. I've got 2 Stanley Cup rings, man. So pretty remarkable stuff.
One of the words that comes to mind when I think of you is resilience.
Sure.
Right now, with Rolling Loud and all these things, hip hop is across the board. There really ain't a color on it, like it's everywhere, right?
Facts.
But we know how it started, right? You being a dude that was in Tampa, you went to USF, right?
I did, shout
you
out.
Went to, right, you went to USF.
Yep.
Part of even what you just told us, one of the most popular stations right here is Wild 94.1.
Yep.
You were there in the beginning before there were major stations running through Tampa like everybody hears now.
Right.
Right? And then you guys were heavy with introducing hip hop on a major level in this market, but there wasn't necessarily a lot of black and brown kids over there. For like a kid like me from New York, that's really how I saw it.
Sure.
So you're coming in on a whole different side of that, right? So when you're not black or brown,
sure,
and you guys are playing like some of these hottest records, Busta Rhymes,
right,
even Eminem coming on the scene. I mean, you've been there for DMX, Kanye, and everything else.
Yep.
How did that feel breaking into, and I'm sure you felt some people sometimes going, why does he have that gig? And did you feel like there was something that you had to prove that you belong there?
Of course, 100%. And again, I think when Wild 94.1, which back then was 98.7, came into the market, again, just a kid who loved the music, was embracing the culture. I came in from the DC, Maryland area, so I grew up having stations like WPGC and Al B. Shore and just that culture of DC go-go. Again, I was near it, right? And so I fell in love with it. And when I moved to Florida, there was no outlet here, right? We're talking the early 90s, early to mid 90s. None of that existed here. It hadn't made its way down from the north, down south. Now, of course, you had the Uncle Luke's and stuff like that, the Miami bass and stuff like that, but that wasn't necessarily the hip hop culture that I was used to.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Growing up with the Beastie Boys and Run DMC and Brand Nubian and Native Tongues, all of that stuff. So my outlet was to go find it. And so again, being a college kid at USF, limited resources as far as what was to be offered in the city of Tampa. And again, I found the Underground Railroad guys on 88.5 who were on community radio at the time, who were playing hip hop, the real hip hop, from 12 at midnight to 3 in the morning.
Right, there was only a certain time that it was happening.
Community radio after hours, right? But I seeked it out. I listened to it every week. Again, I found Russell, who was the Hive Hip Hop magazine, which was a magazine here in Tampa that really just showcased local hip hop. It had some national stuff to it as well, but it was more about the Tampa scene.
What was happening here?
What's happening here. So I started writing music reviews. See, he would give me CDs of artists and say, go listen to this.
Right.
You have a love for it. I trust your opinion on it. I have some artists I want you to review. And that became an outlet for me.
And had you had any kind of training for, I'm gonna write a music review.
Never.
I'm gonna write for a magazine.
Never.
But you just jumped in.
I jumped in. I said, I have an opportunity. If it's about hip hop, which is something that I love, I was excited. I'm like, I'm gonna be writing music reviews for a hip hop magazine. I don't care that it's a local magazine.
Right.
It's an opportunity. And I wanted the opportunity, so I took it.
People have forgotten that they are actually the CEO of themselves.
Facts.
Right? Which means that you have to like try to find where the path is, and then the support can come.
And that's, I think, the $1 million question is, if I'm not motivated, or I don't know what I want to do with my life, I know I like things, but I don't know, is this really what I want to do? Like, that's part of life. If you really enjoy something, and for me, again, at that time in my life, it was hip hop. Hip hop music to me was what I loved the most. It got me away from the everyday, my parents on my back saying, clean my room, or whatever it was my release. And that was the thing I gravitated towards. So when I started growing up and I was a teenager, again, I knew that if this is what I love to do or love in my life, why wouldn't I want to do something as a profession that is around that or surrounds that world? You have to find that within you. And if you find the thing you enjoy most, pursue that. Because you've heard the phrase, I'm sure, before, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, right? And that just goes back to, why would you want to sit at a job, at a desk, in a cubicle, punching in numbers every day when you know this is not what I want to do with my life. I'm not interested in this.
Right.
So why are you doing that? To get a check? You can get a check doing something you love if you work hard enough and you find the avenues to get on the path, as you said. So that's really the key, is to find something you love and really hone in on that and let that be your passion. Let that be your path.
You were winning on the radio.
Yes.
You were always in that top, like
Two.
that echelon,
One or two. Yeah.
of being in radio. And then the higher ups decide, we want to make a change.
Sure.
Right?
You're gonna hear that in life.
What is your first thought when you leave that situation and you walk out of that building knowing that, I wouldn't say not welcome, but you're not in that building in the same capacity anymore?
That was a gut punch. I'm not gonna lie. Like, that was one of the most difficult days of my career. That was my first real dose of reality of, this is a business and it's gonna be run like a business, and it's not so much about the people, no matter how much they tell you it's about the people. At the end of the day, it's about a bottom line, it's a business. And so I really had to step back and take a little bit of time to evaluate. The good thing about being on the radio here in Tampa and having a #1 rated night show was my phone did start ringing. So I was getting flown across the country from other radio stations to interview for these potential job openings at their stations. And I took my time, and I was close to going to a couple different markets. In the time frame that I left the radio station, the gentleman that hired me originally at the radio station at Wild, his name was Mark Gullett. And Mark Gullett had left our radio station about a year and a half into its creation to take a job here at the Tampa Bay Lightning as Vice President of Marketing.
Wow.
So, as the night DJ at Wild, and he being here as the marketing director for the Lightning, there was many years that went by that we did a lot of promotions together. We had a great working relationship while he was here and I was still at the station that he originally brought me on to. When I got let go, he was one of the first people I called and said, hey, Mark, you've seen me grow from street teamer to the #1 rated night show in Tampa. He didn't think I would be that guy in Tampa, and I proved him wrong. He's the first person I really hit up and said, I would love to, in some way, shape, or form, work with you again. And he said at the time, Greg, I would hire you tomorrow if I had something here, but I don't have anything here for you. But It's good to know that, you're looking, and if something comes my way, I'll put your resume on the top of my stack, basically.
Some people call that cheating, Greg. And I don't, because here's how I look at it, and that's why I want you to come in on this point.
Sure.
I watched Chris Rock one time, and people don't know Chris Rock, great comedian, right? And he was talking about opportunities and jobs. And he was like, man, people are saying he only got that job because he knew somebody.
Sure.
And then Chris Rock's point was, man, 50% of the people in this audience got their job because they knew somebody.
Facts.
Right? Relationships are how I've kind of, to me, been built.
Yep.
And I preach that, and I push the handshaking, and I push being a good person and making sure that your name means something.
Sure.
Give me your thoughts on that.
First of all, the word cheating should have nothing to do with the term networking. If you want to call somebody a cheater because they've built relationships that benefit both parties over a period of time. How in the world is that even remotely cheating? That's called networking. That's called relationship building, kids. That's what that is. And if you want to get anywhere in life, you're gonna have to build relationships. That's what it's about. It's about your reputation. It's about how you treat people. And it's about the job and the work that you do. The only way you're gonna get to the CEO status is to build relationships, because you can't do it yourself. You need people to help you along the way. Relationship building is what gets you there.
Not only are you a part of this organization, you're an entrepreneur.
Sure.
And at some point in all of those moves, you decided, I also want to start my own business, right?
Yeah.
At what point was it that you decided that, you know, I'm gonna run beside this though and do something else?
Street Laced, which is my business, was born out of that moment when I was no longer working at the radio station. So before I started working here at the Lightning, after I got let go of the radio station, there was that lull when I was getting flown, to be interviewed at different stations. That's when Blaze, my business partner, approached me. And Blaze, we'll talk about relationships. Here's a perfect example of that. My business partner, Blaze, back when I was on the radio station, was a market representative for the major record labels at that time. Def Jam, Interscope, Sony, Virgin, like these were like the big artists, the 50 Cents, the Eminems, the Dr. Dre, like all of the big artists were on the labels, Atlantic, that he had. His job here in Tampa was to make sure that all the DJs had the latest releases from those artists. And back then it was all on record. So it was the record, lots of vinyl. The UPS guy used to hate him because of how many deliveries he would get every single day. But his job was to make sure the DJs in the market had the most current priorities and projects for his record labels. He would make sure these guys had the records that had the clean versions, the acapella, the dirty version, the radio version. He was that guy. When I left the radio station and Blaze and I talked, he said, I could really use your help. He goes, I have so much work on my plate and you already know all the DJs, you have all the relationships with the club owners, everybody knows who you are. I could use your help. The more we talked, I said, I don't necessarily know if I should work for you, but let's start a legitimate company together. Now, you already have the record labels. What am I bringing to the table?
Right.
Here's my plan. Let me go get 6 more record labels based upon the fact that we have all the big guys. So if we're already out doing the work anyways for the big guys, why wouldn't the little guys want to tag along and get their stuff out as well? Right. That was my pitch. And we got 6 more record labels. So now Street Laced was built. We were major record and music promoters in Tampa. And again, taking that same model he had already started and just expanding it. Now we're working for 12 record labels, doing the market stuff for them. And that's how Street Laced was born. And again, it was born out of an opportunity between one opportunity and the next.
Right.
That conversation back then to build this network of DJs in Tampa started out of necessity because we would hear from the DJs that were working in these clubs, primarily in Ybor City at the time. And again, this is years and years ago, different times. The DJs were frustrated because they were having to wait until the wee hours of the morning to get paid from the club owners, right? And we heard the frustration and we said to the DJs, you know what? We are a business.
Right.
This needs to be treated as a business. And these owners are treating them just as a hired worker, not as a business. So would you as the DJ like to be able to just show up, do your gig and leave? Not have to worry about getting paid at the end of the night. Let us go in there and represent you and do the dirty work. Let us deal with the owners. Let us deal with the managers. You know how we're gonna do that? We're gonna send them an invoice, just like their liquor retailers do. When they get a new order, a case of liquor, or they get a case of beer, they get an invoice, and they sign off on it, and then a check, and there's money exchanged. This is how it's going to be treated, as another service, just like their liquor distributors. And what business is going to say no to that, number one, if we're coming at you in a more professional manner, number one? And number two, we're taking all the BS away. And that's how it's worked. And now we have a roster of 46 DJs in Tampa. And we are pretty much one of the sole providers of DJ and entertainment for the Tampa Bay Lightning, for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, IMG Academy, University of South Florida, City of Tampa, And the list goes on and on. You may say, wow, they have 40 plus DJs. Quantity over quality. No.
I was gonna say.
There's thousands of DJs in this area, thousands. So the fact that we only have 43 or 46 or whatever it is now is because every single person we've added to our team is an absolute professional at what they do. They either have worked in radio or professional entertainment spaces prior, because they know if we're putting you in a situation to work at a Tampa Bay Lightning game, there's not gonna be a bunch of F-bombs and inappropriate music being dropped. You have to have professionals and put them in successful situations to be successful. The professionalism factor, the punctuality, the understanding of the assignment, making sure you read the details, and he can tell you, we have an app that our team uses so that every question, every detail that they would ever need to know, the who, what, when, where, why, what time am I supposed to be there? Is there a theme? Do I have to wear a specific color? Who's my on-site contact? Do I have a power source? There's 1,000 questions that get asked before you just show up and do that gig. It is 100% a legitimate business. It is not just a party 24/7. Now, on the surface, when you're looking at the IG, it looks like a party because that is us doing our job to make it look like this is where you need to be. And if you're not here, you're not here. So that's the end result of all the work that goes on behind the scenes to get it to that point.
That's like a super segue. Can we do this now? Like, cause the history, we could keep going, and it's a lot. Like I said, my brother right here. But we came to visit you in your house, man.
Yeah,
so
man, welcome.
If you don't mind, like, can we dip around your house a little bit?
Let's dip around. We got some kids hockey today. Let's go take a walk, shall we?
Yeah, we'll dip around and take you inside what for today we'll call it the house of Greg.
Wolf's house. Come on to my house.
Wolf's house.
It's the Wolf Den, baby.